Hello, Matthew.
Hi, Mark.
You alright?
How's your Bugatti?
Broke?
Both of them have broken gearboxes. Both of them have misfires. I've just gone into neutral! Wait. No way! Park! No!
Two men, same country, same brand, same era of hypercar engineering. Yet two completely different decisions that have now collided in public view, forcing the entire automotive world to confront a question that sounds simple on the surface, but becomes far more complex the deeper you go. Who actually made the better decision? One paid roughly £900,000 for a Bugatti Veyron that didn't just arrive broken, it arrived in pieces, its gearbox housing shattered, its transmission removed and shipped across Europe. Its future depends on a chain of specialists stretching from Holland to Spain to Australia, a machine that required reconstruction before it could even begin to function again. The other paid less, received a complete car, rolled it into a workshop, diagnosed the issue within hours, and brought it back to life with something as absurdly simple as a fuse from a local parts store. And now the internet has done what it always does. It has reduced both stories into a scoreboard, a winner and a loser. But that reduction hides the only thing that actually matters. Because this is not about the outcome we are seeing today. It is about the decision that was made at the moment of purchase. When neither man had the benefit of hindsight, when the risks were real, the information incomplete, and the consequences potentially catastrophic. Strip away the thumbnails, the comments, the viral moments, and what you are left with is not a story about two cars. It is a study in how people make high-stakes decisions under uncertainty, especially when the manufacturer offers no support, when documentation is limited, and when the margin for error is measured not in inconvenience, but in hundreds of thousands of pounds. To understand why this comparison is so compelling, you first have to understand what both men were actually buying, because the gap between these two decisions is not as simple as a price difference, and it is not as obvious as the current results might suggest. The Veyron itself is not just another car, it is a technical statement, a machine that was never designed to follow conventional rules of production, cost efficiency, or even serviceability, but instead to answer a single, almost impossible question. Can a road car produce 1,000 horsepower from 16 cylinders across 8 liters of displacement, with 4 turbochargers, and still exceed 250 miles per hour, while remaining road legal? The answer was yes. But the cost of that answer was complexity, on a level few machines in automotive history have ever reached, and that complexity defines both of these purchases. Because when something goes wrong on a Veyron, you are not dealing with a single failure, you are dealing with a system, a network of interdependent components where one fault can cascade into multiple symptoms, where diagnosing the problem is often more difficult than fixing it, and where access to knowledge is as valuable as the parts themselves. And that's where the paths begin to separate. When Mark made his decision, he was not buying a mystery. He was buying a known problem, and that distinction is everything. The gearbox housing was cracked, visible, measurable, undeniable, and while that sounds catastrophic, within the world of hypercars, it is, paradoxically, one of the best-case scenarios. Because visible damage can be assessed, it can be priced, it can be planned, it creates a defined path forward, however expensive, however complicated. Mark wasn't guessing. He was evaluating. And that evaluation led to a price that reflected two things: the cost of repair and the premium for taking on the risk. £900,000 was not random. It was calculated. Because a working Veyron in comparable condition can exceed $1.5 million, which means the discount exists for a reason. It represents the cost of putting the car back together and the willingness to deal with everything that comes with it. And more importantly, it represents control. Because Mark understood what the damage did and what it did not affect. A cracked gearbox housing does not automatically mean engine failure. It does not mean electrical corruption. It does not mean structural compromise. It is severe, but it is contained. And in high-value systems contained, problems are manageable problems. Now compare that to the second decision. Because what Matt bought was not defined by what was visible. It was defined by what was missing. No service history, no ownership records, no documentation, no explanation of what the car had been through or how it had been kept alive. Just a running engine and a question mark. And that absence of information is not a minor detail, it is the risk. Because unknown history introduces variables you cannot price. It opens the door to hidden faults, incorrect repairs, stressed components, and systems that appear functional until the moment they fail. The fuse that brought the gearbox back to life is the perfect example. Because while it looks like a miracle, it is actually a warning. Someone before him encountered the same issue, and instead of diagnosing the cause, they escalated the symptom. A fuse blew, so they replaced it. It blew again, so they increased the rating. Again and again. Until eventually, a fuse held. Not because the problem was solved, but because the protection was removed. And that decision, quietly, slowly, introduces heat. Sustained heat. Not the clean break of a proper failure, but the kind that builds over time. Plastic softens. Connections degrade. Adjacent systems absorb damage. And by the time the car changes hands, the visible problem is gone, but the underlying cause remains. So yes, the gearbox worked after the fuse was replaced, but the real question is not what fixed it, it is what broke it in the first place. Because fuses don't fail randomly. They fail for a reason, and that reason is still somewhere in the system. Waiting. This is where the comparison becomes uncomfortable. Because while one result looks like success, and the other looks like struggle, they are not playing the same game. Mark bought known damage. Matt bought an unknown risk. And in risk analysis, those are not equal categories. Known damage can be priced. Unknown damage cannot. It has no ceiling, no predictable timeline, no defined scope. It reveals itself slowly, often at the worst possible moment. And yet, both decisions are rational because they align with two completely different philosophies. One prioritizes control, the other embraces uncertainty. One builds a roadmap before the journey begins. The other discovers the path while walking it. And this is where the conversation shifts from cars to mindset. Because in the hypercar world, value is not just mechanical, it is narrative, provenance, confidence, a car with a documented rebuild, a clear history, and traceable decisions becomes something buyers understand, something they trust, something they can price. But a car with gaps, with unknowns, with signs of previous improvisation, becomes something else. A question. And in this market, questions cost money. That does not make one approach better, but it does make them different. And that difference matters. Because the real lesson here is not about who is winning right now. It is about how decisions are made, when the outcome is still invisible. Mark chose certainty of problem. Matt chose opportunity in uncertainty. Both required knowledge. Both required confidence. Both required a willingness to step into a space where most people would walk away. And that might be the most important part of this entire story. Because the majority of people, when faced with either option, would choose neither. The price is too high, the risk too unclear, the systems too complex. But these two looked at the same situation and asked a different question. Not, is this too difficult? But, what is the actual problem, and can I solve it? And that question, asked consistently, executed publicly, shared with millions, is why this comparison exists in the first place. Two decisions, two paths, two completely different relationships with risk, and both still unfolding. So who made the better decision? The honest answer is this. Mark made the safer one. Matt made the bolder one. One bought clarity. The other bought possibility. And the outcome? It's not finished yet, because in a world like this, the real story is never the first result. It's what happens next. It is the central risk of the entire purchase, because unknown history introduces variables that cannot be priced in advance. It creates the possibility of hidden faults, previous repairs done incorrectly, components stressed beyond their limits, and systems that may appear functional until they are placed under load, at which point they fail in ways that are far more complex and expensive than the initial symptoms suggested. The fuse that brought the gearbox back to life is the perfect example of this dynamic, because while it represents a dramatic and almost unbelievable moment of success, it also reveals a deeper layer of risk. Namely that someone before Matt encountered the same issue and chose to bypass the underlying problem rather than solve it, installing higher-rated fuses to prevent failure rather than investigating why the failure was occurring in the first place. And that decision, while temporarily effective, introduces heat, stress, and long-term damage into the system, meaning the fuse itself was not the problem. It was a symptom. And the real question, the one that remains unanswered, is what caused the original failure? What forced someone to escalate from a correct fuse rating to an incorrect one? And what impact that decision has already had on the surrounding components, including the fuse box, the wiring harness, and the gearbox pump itself. This is where the comparison becomes uncomfortable, because while Matt's early result is undeniably impressive, it does not resolve the uncertainty of the car's history. It only reveals how much of that history is still unknown. And in risk analysis terms, unknowns of discovery are fundamentally different from unknowns of execution. Because they cannot be planned for, they emerge over time, often at the worst possible moment, and they have no predefined ceiling in terms of cost or complexity. When you place both decisions side by side, stripped of outcome and viewed purely through the lens of information available at the time, a pattern emerges that challenges the narrative forming in the comments. Mark paid a premium for certainty of problem, while Matt accepted a discount in exchange for uncertainty of condition. And both choices are rational within their respective frameworks, because they align with different approaches to risk, different tolerances for ambiguity, and different objectives for the end result. Mark's approach prioritizes control, predictability, and documentation, building a project where each step is understood, each component is accounted for, and the final product carries a clear and verifiable history that enhances its value in the eyes of future buyers, collectors, and specialists. Matt's approach prioritizes opportunity, adaptability, and the ability to extract value from situations that others would avoid, leveraging experience, intuition, and a willingness to engage directly with the unknown in order to uncover solutions that are not immediately obvious. And while this approach can produce extraordinary results, as the fuse moment demonstrates, it also carries a level of volatility that cannot be ignored, because every success is paired with the potential for a discovery that changes the entire scope of the project. The market implications of these approaches add another layer to the analysis, because in the hypercar world, value is not determined solely by functionality, but by story, provenance, and confidence. And those factors are deeply influenced by how a car is repaired, documented, and presented to future buyers. A car with a clearly documented rebuild, supported by known specialists, traceable parts, and a transparent process, carries a level of credibility that translates into higher resale value and greater trust, while a car with gaps in its history, evidence of previous incorrect repairs, and unresolved questions about its past may face skepticism, even if it performs perfectly, because in this segment, perception is as important as performance, and uncertainty carries a financial penalty that can be significant. This does not mean one approach is inherently better than the other, but it does highlight the trade-offs involved and why the answer to the question of who made the better decision cannot be reduced to a single metric such as cost or speed of initial success. There is also a personal dimension that cannot be ignored, because these decisions are not made in isolation. They are shaped by the individuals making them, their goals, their experience, and their willingness to engage with risk in different ways. Mark's decision reflects a mindset that values understanding, control, and the ability to navigate complexity through structure and planning, while Matt's decision reflects a mindset that embraces uncertainty, thrives on problem-solving, and views ambiguity not as a barrier, but as an opportunity to create value where others see only risk. And both mindsets have their place, both can lead to success, and both can fail under the right conditions, which is what makes this comparison so compelling, because it is not just about cars. It is about philosophy, about how people approach problems when the stakes are high and the answers are not immediately available. As both projects continue to unfold, the narrative will evolve, new challenges will emerge, and the balance between these two approaches may shift, but the core lesson remains the same. The quality of a decision cannot be judged solely by its immediate outcome, especially in environments where uncertainty plays a significant role, and where the true cost and complexity of a project are only revealed over time. What matters is the alignment between the decision, the information available at the time, and the individual's ability to manage the risks involved. And by that standard, both decisions can be seen as successful, not because they produce identical results, but because they represent coherent strategies applied consistently within their respective frameworks. One prioritizes certainty and control. The other embraces uncertainty and adaptability. And together, they illustrate the spectrum of possibilities that exist when expertise, risk, and opportunity intersect in a space as complex and unforgiving as the world of hypercars.